Special guest tonight, Bill Reynolds is in the house. He's written a brand new book about the Hope High School basketball team, but it's about a whole lot more than that.
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
So we are in the final stretches of basketball season. You know, college March Madness is about to begin. The high school playoffs will begin soon. By the way, my company, DICOM, Dan Yorke Communications, can you figure that out? Produces the high school basketball championships on the radio. Actually coming up Sunday, the divisional championships from Brown on WPRV, that's AM 790. The following week we'll do the State Open Championship quarterfinals on AM 790. That's on Sunday. And then the Final Four for the boys and the finals for both the boys and the girls at the Ryan Center on WPRO. So make a note of that. It's kind of my other hobby, avocation, thing I really like to do. Talking politics with you and the issues of the day. That's my job. You know, I like to do we like to do the sports thing. But I like mixing with the sports world because it is a whole lot more about X's and O's. And if there's anybody I know who has mastered the skill to be able to tell the stories well past the X's and O's, it is my friend Bill Reynolds. His new book is Hope, a school, a team, a dream, and it is, I know, phenomenal, A, because Bill's phenomenal, but I've already been able to read some excerpts. It is on my night table, and I'm just full disclosure, it's going to be a one-day read, just like every other book I've read of yours is a one-day read, because when I'm in it,
well,
you know what the problem with you is?
Let's see, I spent a year doing it, and you read it in one day.
Well, hey, listen.
Something's wrong with that.
There are times when I spend a lot of time putting on this show, and it's gone in a second. Welcome, my friend. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
But the thing about your work, I can't start a column without finishing it. I can't start your books without saying, all right, I need 4 hours because I'm gonna blow through this thing and soak it all up. I need a plane trip is what I need because the way you write, it's a can't put down. And I'm guessing that the stories that you have in this particular work are all of that. You proud of this work?
Oh, very much so, because you can't make it up. And it's funny, Dan, these are the kids that, forget the sports for a second, these are the kids that the society has no answers for. These are the kids who walk down the street in downtown Providence in their hoodies and their sweatshirts, and everybody walks the outside the street. And
in fact, that's what you write.
Absolutely.
What are these kids that society seems to walk to the other side of the street to avoid? All these non-white poor kids, the ones with the hoodies, the baggy pants, often fearing for their lives.
Absolutely. And I got the idea, who knows how you get an idea, but to me, it's Trayvon Martin. Same thing. Black kid in the wrong place, wrong time. Someone thinks he's a criminal. These people, these kids have become invisible to us. And even in sports, I mean, these are the kids who play around in the Scholastic League for the most part. They're in inner city schools, and they're out of sight and out of mind. So my idea was, who are they? Very basic question. Who are they? What do they dream? What are their lives like? And that was the premise.
The other day, even before the excerpts from the Journal began, there's 4 or 5 excerpts that we've got here, and we'll tell some stories. I don't know what camera I'm on. Jess loves that double camera thing, but I honestly don't even. There I am. But the thing that got me was not these excerpts, but the column that you wrote about a young man who you saw in the news pages, in the coverage, who got into trouble, who was one of the kids that you wrote about.
The kid got shot.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's Quentin Marrow, and he was a kid, unlike a lot of them, he didn't have any basketball aspirations, really. He wasn't trying to be a pro. He knew he wasn't going to play in college. He wanted to be an electrician. The nicest kid in the world, the kid who would always be first, running the sprints where everybody else loafed. And he's in the wrong place at the wrong time. He's in a house in South Providence on a Saturday night, and he's on one floor, and a bullet comes down through the other floor and almost kills him. And the point is, one of the inspirations for this story, this was several years ago, and I'm talking to a kid, East Side kid, Camp Street, black kid, going to Hope, and he said kind of offhandedly, kids in my neighborhood, 17, 18 years old, we fear for our lives. And this is 4 or 5 years ago, whatever it was. And I'm saying to myself, what's going on here? So the idea for this book was not just one specific little, like, burst of inspiration. It was gradually going in and out of this world as a reporter. And you can't cover basketball in America anymore without dealing with inner city kids. They are all over the college game, as we know. So I've done this for 30 years. But you go in, you hear their story, and they go, and you go out. And the ones that I do basically are the ones who they're successful. They get to Providence College. They get to URI.
Right.
These are the kids who are less successful, but they're there, and they're there in every inner city high school team in America, not just Providence, Rhode Island.
Yeah, in our next segment, I want to talk about some of the stories that are in the book that have been highlighted by the Providence Journal. But before I get to that, let me ask you this: you have made a living as a sports chronicler. Do you have invested time and energy in the individual stories of athletes across the spectrum? It has been one of the things I think has been part of your incredible signature. But there's a thing that I always think about, especially I think about it when I'm doing the public address at the Ryan Center and there's a full crowd and there's an economy to this collegiate sports thing. There's a big business aspect. We've got
no doubt
satellite trucks outside.
Right.
We've got $1 million paid coaches.
Right.
We've got referees, for heaven's sakes, that are making $2,500 a game.
Right.
And the kids that are putting on the performance, they're scholar athletes on the collegiate level.
Absolutely. Yep.
But is your effort to chronicle this whole high school team kind of a consciousness about all of that and whether or not it's real and where the reality really exists within the game of basketball or sport in general?
I think the question is too smart for me. I don't know. I don't deal with it. I deal with it on a variety of levels, but who people are and what motivates them is, to me, more important than the actual games, if that makes any sense. Someone's going to win and someone's going to lose, and there's another game next week, and there's another season next season, and we all know that. It's who are they? And these kids, the ones in this book, these are the ones who don't get to the Ryan Center, and they're not going to get to the Ryan Center. They are, but they get the same dreams, they get these same basketball dreams, and they go.
Do they?
Oh, I think so. I think a lot of them do. Not all of them, but yeah. It's the inner city. It's the ghetto dream, and it's the ghetto game in a lot of ways. And if you're not good at it, you pay a psychic price for that because you're supposed to be good at it. But it's the carrot. It's the carrot they're all chasing. I mean, not every kid, obviously, but it's.
And not all these inner city teams are championship teams either.
Oh God, no.
They
no.
get beat by the Suburbans.
Well, sure, because
often.
Well, all right, but the reality is there's no middle school basketball in Providence. So kids they learn the game, they learn pickup games, they play knockout, hustle, these ridiculous playground games that have nothing to do with basketball. And there's no middle school games. So they come into high school, basically a lot of them, out of a playground AAU culture, who have never been taught basketball really. They haven't played a whole lot of what we call real basketball, and they struggle with it. There's no doubt about that. And when they struggle with it, it's a psychic struggle because they're supposed to be good at it. If that makes any sense.
And they don't learn about the process, the discipline, the diligence until such time as they get a real coach.
Exactly.
And you've chronicled, let me tell you something, this guy at Hope, I whacked him on the radio once because he was a little too intense for me.
No, I understand.
But you know what? There's more to a story than a single thing in a package that you may think. You never judge a book by its cover, and I think I judged him perhaps by his cover. He is really, really in a psychological exercise with these kids.
There's no question. I met him.
Coach Nyblom we're talking about.
I met him 20 years ago on a treadmill at the South County Y, where like adjoining treadmills, and he lived there and I was living down there. And he said two things that I have never forgotten. He said, I bring kids down to my house every year to have dinner, and I live out in the country. And one day, the kids are walking from my house to my brother's house, 100 yards away, through the dark, and they're scared. So he says, maybe I'll shoot a few shots up into the air so you'll feel comfortable. I mean, it's you put them, kids who are growing up in the hell of inner cities, and you put them up in some kind of rural area, and they're scared because they're kids. And the other thing he said, I've had kids who sit at my table who have never had a sit-down dinner before. And those two things stuck in my mind. So you asked me before, the inspiration for the book.
Say that slowly. Never had
They
a
had never
sit-down
had
dinner
a
before.
sit-down dinner at home before in their life. Now, not all of them, obviously, but he's had kids like that. And I think that people have no idea. I come back from these bus rides. It's 10:30 at night. It's freezing cold. There's never any parent there. There's never any car there. They are dropped off either downtown in Kennedy Plaza and scramble for another bus back home, or they're dropped off at home. And that's the reality of it. And it's a reality that suburban kids have no idea about and don't live in that world, thank God. But this is the world these kids live in. And each kid's got their own story, obviously, but the collective story is that it's difficult. There's nothing easy about this. Right. And this is basketball. This isn't trying to be a mathematician.
Oh, I get it. When we come back, we'll highlight a couple of those stories. Stay with us. With Bill Reynolds as he chronicles the Hope High School team. By the way, over what period of time did you follow him to write this book, Hope, a School of Team Dream?
From December 1st of 2012 to March of 2013. Basically every day they practiced, or a game.
And it took you all the way until this time to write it, edit it, put it out there?
Well, yeah, it takes about a year to write it, and then it gets in a production schedule. And,
the business of writing a book is the business of writing a book.
Without question.
But there's even the Journal has provided some excerpts from the book that you may have read or should go back over the last week or so, because it's been daily that they've been doing it. But there's a couple of stories we wanted to highlight here that you think really kind of, tell the story. And the one is, without basketball, I just feel empty. This is a chapter, it's a story.
Right.
Talk to me about it.
Yeah, let me see, which one you got here?
This one.
Yeah, Eli Lewis. Eli Lewis was a sophomore. He had transferred, his mother was from Providence. He had grown up in Bridgeport. He ends up in Providence with his mother. His father is back in Connecticut. And he was, in many ways, the prototypical inner city kid. Couldn't handle any kind of criticism. No patience for anything. Very hard to be coached. He would go off into a shell. And that whole year, Nybloom, the coach, was always throwing him out. Okay, Eli, go outside, run up and down the hallway for a while. When you get tired, you come back and maybe I'll let you in. And that's the way he was dealt with. The next year, this is kind of after when I was writing the book, he's much better. I went to some games. He's much better. He could look you in the face. He could have a conversation with you. And he said to me something to the effect that, I said, where's your father in your life? He says, well, I really don't deal with him a whole lot. And I said, why? He says, because he never taught me how to be a man. I have to figure that out for myself. And that was like a bomb went off. Because that's what's going on here. That is a huge part of this problem in inner cities, in every inner city in America. Absent fathers who come in and out of lives. And these kids suffer from that. There's no question about that.
How did he? I'm sure this is part of the story that you chronicle. How did he realize that he hadn't been taught? Something must have happened in his life where he realized he lacked that.
Because the year before he couldn't be coached. The minute you tried to coach him, he saw that as criticism.
But somewhere along the line, he became coachable.
Yeah. After about a year of this, after these coaches getting in his face and and giving him some discipline.
But did he come to that understanding that his dad had not taught him to be a man on his own?
I think so.
That's profound.
That's what I thought. No, it's absolutely, because he was different the next year. You could have a conversation with me. The first time, that whole first year, he would never look at me. If I said something to him, he would look the other way. He couldn't deal with it for whatever reason. And a year later, he comes out and says, I'm trying to teach myself how to be a man because my father never taught me how to do it. And it was like a light bulb off.
And so because of that, he's not spending much time with him because he doesn't respect them?
I don't think. Both. The number of absent fathers in this story is staggering. And now there are people who come in and out once in a while, but a father in a traditional sense of being in the house day to day, there aren't very many.
I had a chance to read the excerpt that I believe might have been in yesterday's paper, where this is airing on Friday, and I think it printed on Thursday. Just throw up the next one. I hope you should all come to play. You should all be proud. This is a play-by-play of a practice session with Coach Nivelon, where he literally is chewing these kids out for their laziness, for their nonchalance, for their lack of discipline, for their lack of effort. He highlights one kid who ought to be their role model, and at the end, he actually talks about their innate ability. I found it to be a fascinating
One of the things that Nivelon
essay.
would always do, frequently do, he'd make them sit at center court after practice. And so they'd be on the ground, sitting there. And he would stand over them, and the coaches would be there, and he would let them have it. You know, you did this, you did that, you're a baby, you're a bad teammate, you don't listen to anybody, and he would let them have it. And the next day, he brings them food. And he would go run laps, out of the gym, go run for 10 minutes, and maybe I'll bring you back, and maybe I won't. And this is what it was. And in retrospect, I think he has to do that.
But they were on the verge of winning a championship,
yeah.
and he was screaming them down like they had nothing to offer.
Because they had a rotten practice, and they were going through the motions. And inner city kids collectively, it's hard to coach them because they see coaching as criticism. You're attacking their manhood. You are disrespecting them. So it gets into all this kind of inner city nonsense about being disrespected and how I'm being projected to my teammates. All of that stuff, it goes on all the time. It's a daily drama. And but the great thing is, by the end of the year, they get better. They get better. They deal with it better. They can be coached. They can be yelled at once in a while without packing it in for the day.
And he's got to recognize, which is the interesting part, I'm sure all old school athletes, myself included, who were in high school, who played organized sport, have an idea how somebody ought to be coached,
Sure.
and all that kind of stuff. All the rules are broken in an environment like this. I mean, he's screaming bloody murder at him, and then he says, you know, because Mr. Miserable over here can get to the rim better than anyone in the state, and when the lights go on, you all come to play, and I can't coach that.
Right.
And then he says you should be proud.
Right.
So while he's beating them up for a lack of hustle, discipline, preparation, all that kind of stuff, he recognizes that this is a unique kind of group, and that when it's game time, they're on another planet.
Right. I mean, from what I gathered, and I've been there all the time, you can't coach these kids out of a textbook.
No.
It's just not going to work. Every day is a little bit of a psychic struggle here, and some kids respond better to it, some kids don't. The team collectively got appreciably better as the season went on, not only on the court, but off the court too. They could be coached, they could be criticized, they wouldn't turn on each other. In the beginning, it was like a free fall. I mean, it really was. The first few days, I said to myself, I'm going to spend all winter here? What am I, crazy? Because this is going to be a disaster. And I mean, they played a couple of games early in the season when it was, beyond belief. Beyond belief. And I said, oh my God, I picked the wrong horse here.
All right. Some of the video you're watching, by the way, is recent video of high school basketball and Hope High School. Remember, that's the 2015 version of Hope's team. But there's Coach Nyblom in the middle, giving somebody heck. When we come back, we'll talk about whether Bill achieved his expectation in spending all the time with these young people. Stay with us. I've said it before and I've said it again, I could spend all night with Bill Reynolds. His new book is just a must-read, not just for basketball fans, by the way. This is a life story. Hope, a school, a team, a dream. And I think if you've read Bill for any length of time, and most of you have, I'm sure you know he tells a lot of life stories. I know you got another one that you want to throw at us that didn't make some of the excerpts in the Journal, but before we get to that, going in, you decide to chronicle a high school team for a season. You're going to write a book. You write the book, coming out. Did it come out the way you projected it would come out?
That's a great question. It came out, I didn't know how it was going to come out.
You go in with an open mind. I'll just
Well,
I'll follow it wherever it goes.
20 years ago on the Fall River High School team, Durfee High School. With Chris Herron was a high school junior, and I love being around teams. So it's fun for me to be around a team every day. Going to practice every day, I don't see that as a job. And what I learned in the Fall River book is you never know. You don't know what's going to happen. That's the beauty of a season. The season has a story, the kids have a story, the coach has a story, and hopefully the stories are dramatic and compelling. So when I walk into the Hope thing, not a lot of expectation really. like I don't know what the story's going to be, and that's part of the challenge of it.
You know what I really find fascinating? This is just real life that you were watching. It's real life. It doesn't become drama until you get a chance as an artist, and you are an artist, to paint it. So there's everyday stuff going on all the time.
No question.
It's their reality.
Yes.
It's their drama.
Yes, but that's
It's got a lot of heartache. It's got a lot of.
But that's my role in it. I mean, my role there
It's just to watch it.
is to watch it and to try and make some sense out of it.
But we look at it as a piece of art. We look at it as a piece of journalism. We look at it as a story that when we read it, we are gifted by having read it. Yet if you don't think to write it, it's just a bunch of practices and a team that was playing ball for a year. Do you follow me? It's fascinating that way.
Yeah, but I don't think of it that way.
I know you don't.
No.
But
I mean,
you should.
I mean, put it this way. I could have done that book 30 years ago. I've driven by the school every day for 30 years.
I understand.
And I didn't get the idea until whenever. If I'd been on top of my game, I might have got the idea 30 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 10 years ago. Like I got it 2 years ago.
Things happen at a place and time for a purpose. Give me one short story that didn't make the journal excerpts.
I'm sitting in the room. It's 2:30 in the afternoon with the best player, Manny Cargbo, Liberian immigrant, comes over here, no father, had spent time in a refugee camp in Liberia, lives in the Manton Avenue housing project. And it's 2:30 in the afternoon, and they're going to play a game at night at Hope. And I said, Manny, what are you going to do to eat for the game? He goes, oh, no. I said, what do you mean, no? He says, no eat. I said, what are you talking about? I said, you going to play a game with no food? He said, I said, there's a McDonald's around the corner. No money. And so I'm thinking, I'm quiet for a minute. And he said to me, maybe one of my teammates will give me a candy bar. And that's the reality. And I'm sure he's not the only one living like in that reality. This is what is going on in the Interscholastic League. It's going on in every high school league in inner city America, and it's going on in Providence, Rhode Island, and other places. And we as a society have lost sight of this, because these are the forgotten kids, and the ones we know about are the ones who make it to the big time, the Big East or this or URI or whatever. But the overwhelming reality is that most kids are not going to make it to the Ryan Center or to the Dunk, but they're real people. As one teacher said to me one day, he was talking about how screwed up the whole thing was. But he said, these are real people we're talking about here, and that's what I tried to do. Write about some real people.
Have the kids read it?
Yeah, starting to.
Yeah.
It's like anything else. They want to read about themselves first. They're not going to read a one.
They go to their chapter.
They're going to go to their, Right. That's what I would have done then, right? Maybe do it now.
It's great work, my friend. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hope, a school, a team, a dream. It should be on your nightstand, and it should be your 4 hours set aside to read through it. You'll be, you'll be blessed to have done it. All right, final word when we come back. Stay with us. You pick up Bill's book. It's something I'll be thinking about when we call some high school games, right, starting Sunday on WPRV AM 790. You can't take for granted where these kids are and where they've come from, and that's why you need to respect their effort and learn about who they are as human beings. Easier said than done. Bill did it, and we should all learn from it. Hey, the Oscars. I should bring Bill back. All he does is we'll go to ball games and watch movies. We'll take a look at the Oscars on Monday night with Steve Feinberg from the Rhode Island, arts, television, movie situation. And I'll see you on the radio, not only on Sunday on PRV with the ball games, but Monday at noon on WPRL. Bye-bye.